Pete Case from the agency Gloo, a very warm welcome to the Red
Thank
Zone.
you.
It's good to have you with us. The market is talking about this increasing influence of digital in the brand space. Explain that to me. Why is that so important?
I think it's important because brands obviously want to connect with consumers, and consumers are increasingly connected to digital devices, being the internet as well as new technologies. So it's becoming more of a relevant conversation in the boardroom as to how do we connect, how do we create relationships, how do we talk to the consumer that's digitally enabled.
There was a time, wasn't there, when you digital guys were kind of put into one end of the room and they'd get to you last. I'm sensing that we've reached a fulcrum or a tipping point here, that people are now embracing the concept, and that in many ways you've almost become the lead agency when it comes to brand engagement.
Yeah, I think for a long time we were the geeks in the corner, and for good reason. I think
some of you still are, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I think for good reason. The reach per se, or the amount of people that could connect or that we could connect with was very small. And now that it's bleeding not just in the traditional online spaces such as websites and email marketing, but we're now seeing digitally enabled outdoor billboards. We're seeing a lot of different touch points that we can use and become influential for brands.
So the agency model itself as a result of this has changed. In what respect?
Well, I think it hasn't necessarily changed. I think it needs to change. There's no.
Oh, some would say it is changing, though. Some of your competitors in that traditional above the line space will say we have changed.
Yes,
it's a great debate, isn't it?
It is a good debate, and I think it's something that we need to keep cognizant of all the time. I think any agency that thinks they have the best practice approach to an agency model has got it wrong. The consumer is changing all the time, and therefore the brand's needs for an agency is going to change all the time. I think just right now, you're right, digital has become a tipping point in terms of who is taking the lead in different circumstances. So in a lot of briefs, we're now seeing ourselves take the lead because it's a digitally enabled route to the consumer. But what's really happening is, instead of us being briefed afterwards, we're starting to be briefed at the same time. And there's much more of a collaborative model that's going on that agencies really need to embrace. If they can't have all the services in-house, they need to embrace specialists externally.
Does the strategy change, the broad brand strategy change, and does the creative execution change? Are there two very different streams, or can you coalesce the two quite efficiently?
I think they can be done together, but with different specialists in the room at the same time. So I think from a strategic point of view, we look at similar strategic platforms and creative platforms as well. But in terms of the execution, it's a very different ballgame. There's deep specialists that need to be around the room in order to produce the work that we need to in order to connect to the consumer. I mean, as an example, just on FMB as a client of ours, at the moment we have over 250 touch points that we update as a standard package to consumers. So every time a message goes to market, there's that many touch points that we need to consider, just as their owned media platforms.
How difficult is that to do within an agency itself, though? It's astonishing. I mean, the range of skills that you need to do that must be difficult to find.
It is very difficult to find. I think that's probably the most important point in our agency model, is trying to find the kind of staff that can do the work that we do. And there is no college that's really producing those people. We're really teaching people as we go. And I think that's the struggle that the industry has at the moment. There's a lack of staff for the need. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I think only now colleges are also starting to embrace and teach people the right level of skills.
Pete Case, for marketers who are watching our conversation at this time, often they're intimidated by people like you. They don't get it, they don't understand.
Right.
What's the best way for a brand manager or marketing director to engage with an agency such as yourselves? What kind of basic questions do they need to be asking in order to get the sort of brand solution that they're looking for?
Right.
Because you frighten people.
Hopefully it's not us that's
Look at that face. Yeah.
I think a lot of digital agencies have given digital a bad name, throwing around acronyms and complex discussions.
Baffle us by jargon.
Baffle us with jargon and charge a lot of money. The reality is that it's just a conversation. And for us, it's getting us in the room and having an open conversation and getting as close to the business problem as possible. I think when brands try and brief us, thinking they understand the solution already, that's really when there's an issue. For us, if we get really close to the business problem, then we inevitably can put it in simple words in terms of what a client needs to do. And often, as an example, a client will ask us, will bring us into the room because they think they need a new point of sale communication system or a website. Having listened to the business problem, we come up with a totally different solution. And that's really the way that any agency should really work with its client. If a client knows what it wants before they engage us, then why engage us? So I think that's the way we should be seen, as problem solvers. And often that bleeds beyond marketing. I think our agency has the ability to produce, to look at technology and see how it can help businesses produce optimizations and efficiencies within business as well. I mean, if I look at Spur as an example, we've just produced a new digital loyalty card for them. We've taken them from a printed card into a mobile-enabled card that works with the point of sale system. It's miles away from marketing, but it came out of a marketing conversation.
Is there always going to be a traditional scrap, a line of tension that exists between you and the person perhaps who's doing the above-the-line work for a particular brand? I look at Spur, for instance.
Right.
You know, they've been successful in traditional above-the-line advertising, good, warm television stuff, effective billboard advertising. You're coming at it from a very different angle, but you've also got to coalesce at some point.
Yes.
Is there how do you there's got to be a line of tension. How do you manage that line of tension?
I think it's in a collaborative model. So it's around the client also managing that and setting expectations of its agencies, saying, what do we need from you as a group of people? And it's up to the agencies to be adults and get together and work for the best result for the client, not for the agency. So in a Spur example, we work very closely with Haas, their above-the-line agency, and we collaborate and brainstorm together. And that's what produces the best results for our client. I think the tensions come around when the client doesn't make it clear at the beginning what they're expecting out of that engagement. And I think as budgets migrate, that's where the main point of tension is, because as budgets migrate from above the line to digital, obviously the above the line agencies are not enjoying that spend migration away from them, and they're going to try and see what they can do to hold on to that and enable themselves in the conversation.
Just a final question to you. Given the timelines in your business are 5 minutes, what's the next big thing in the next 5 minutes?
There is no next big thing in the next 5 minutes. I think it changes. It changes all the time.
Every 5 minutes.
And that's why our clients need to have people like us in the room, because it is something that changes that often. And it's our job to bring that to the table every single day. It's a continuing conversation. And if I say I've been doing this for 20 years, I feel pushed every day in the job that I do. And that's what's different about the space.
Pete Case from Gloo, thank you very much for the insight.
Thanks, Jeremy.